In a world full of alcobev options, champagne quite literally will be my last choice. To me, it just feels expensive, sour, and bubbly. And I know, despite us being told via movies and media that champagne is supposed to be this fancy drink, most Indians share my feeling. In one of the largest alcohol consuming nations in the world, not even 1% drinks champagne. And that is exactly what the world's biggest champagne maker is trying to change. Louis Vuitton, Moët Hennessy, or LVMH, is the world's largest luxury brands conglomerate. Louis Vuitton merged with champagne maker Moët Chandon and cognac maker Hennessy in 1987. It houses some of the most iconic alcobev brands in the world, such as Glenmorangie, Ardbeg, Belvedere, and Chandon. The company has been present in India for almost 2 decades, but both its single malts and champagne sales continue to remain negligible in the country. At the helm of this Herculean task of enhancing Moet's India presence is Ipsita Das. Ipsita is one of the youngest female managing directors the company has ever had in the market. Das took on the role in November 2020. She came to the company from Uber, a company as massy as Moët Hennessy is niche. How will she merge the best of both worlds to make more Indians drink champagne? Let's find out from the person in charge herself. It's Friday, the 12th of July. I'm your host, Shauburi Das, in this very premium corner office conversation on the Morning Brief. Thank you for joining us today, Ipsita. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
It's lovely to be here, Shauburi. Looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. So I'm going to start with a very basic one, right? Which one is your favorite in the Moët Hennessy portfolio and why?
Well, it's hard to pick one baby over the other, but it depends upon the moment and the occasion and the company as well. So I do have multiple, but I am a single malt person. The peatier, the better. So Ardbeg is obviously my go-to. With 2 cubes of ice, that would be my favorite. But, Glenmorangie Quinta Ruban was one of my initial favorites. I graduated to Ardbeg only about 3 or 4 years back. For lighter days and lighter moments on a hot summer day, a very chilled glass of Chandon Rosé is what I would look forward to.
I think you and I are part of the same covenant. I'm through and through single malt girl as well. My favorite happens to be Lafroy. Not your portfolio, but it's a good liquid. I mean, let's go with that, right?
We're all PT, all friends.
All PT. Oh, the PT are the better. Always. Right? But okay, so your career has been so interesting. You went from Maersk to housing to Uber and now Moët Hennessy. Could you tell us a little bit about how did this career progression happen? What were some of the interesting details?
Yeah, well, the moral of the story is I'm a very curious person and I love to build things from scratch. And if I don't know about something, that's the place I'm going to find myself in next. So that's what actually got me to do what I did over the last few years of my career. So from a very, very early stage itself, I've always wanted to do things where, I could get into the details and really kind of make an impact. So, I actually grew up wanting to become an astrophysicist. So that's why I actually did a physics honors in my undergraduation. Little did I ever dream that I will be a part of a corporate world someday. So I spent about 7-8 years in Maersk. Had a chance to work with them in India as a global management trainee, but also had a chance to spend some time in Dubai and Denmark. Around the early 2010-11, it was also a time when a lot of startups in India had really started to kind of flourish. And I saw a lot of my friends kind of starting off on their own. And I did get approached by one of the VCs who was investing at that point of time on housing.com. They were looking for someone who had done operations in the past and could really help them set up the business. And that's how housing.com happened. That rolled on to Uber, which was also in Uber's early days in India. As Uber was setting up and launching cities, I joined them as a general manager. launched a few cities, had multiple roles in Uber in my 4 years with them. And then my last one, I was actually the head of future mobility, which was about launching everything beyond cars. So that meant bringing in Uber autos, Uber two-wheelers, and very recently the Uber high-capacity vehicle or the Uber buses or the Uber shuttles that have started.
So, how did Moët Hennessy happen?
When I happened to meet the team from Moët Hennessy India, I was really, really curious about the space, not just from the Moët Hennessy's lens, but also from how the luxury segment in India was changing and evolving. And I felt that, having done something which was about bringing an Uber product to sub 5 rupee a kilometer, to trying to sell something which was 50,000 and more, and at times runs into lakhs, would be an interesting place to find myself, to learn something new. And that was the curiosity bug that got me to this side of the stream. So yeah, curiosity and the reason to build new things and the impact it can create got me to do what I did and gets me excited for what I do next.
So, astrophysics to champagne, and then I'm getting to speak to the woman who is responsible for Uber Auto, and I literally take that every day. Like, I am all about the Uber Auto life.
I love that.
Faster, it's so much faster in Indian roads. But coming back to your current position with Moët Hennessy, it's part of a iconic luxury brand. LVMH, we are all aware of it. Could you tell us a little bit about how Moët Hennessy is placed and positioned within the LVMH umbrella? Because that company is into everything that you can think of, right, when it comes to luxury.
Absolutely, Shabri. And you said it all, right? LVMH is the only group that is present in all luxury sectors. So wines and spirits, fashion and leather goods, perfumes and cosmetics, watches and jewelry, selective retailing, and amongst many others that come in the luxury segment. We are actually a group of 75 plus luxury brands, and it's growing with multiple M&As as well as organic brands that get created. Within LVMH, Moët Hennessy, or MH of the LVMH, has about 30 odd brands. And again, even that is growing. So Moët and Chandon, Krug, Veuve Clicquot, Hennessy, Glenmorangie, all of these, along with many others like Belvedere, are what comprises of LVMH's group's wines and spirits houses. So obviously, most of these are synonymous with the most prestigious origins and the terroirs, from Champagne to Bordeaux. We have pretty much maisons or brands or the houses, as we call them, many of them centuries old. But all of them have something very common amongst them, which is a very unique character that each one of them have. When it comes to the number of brands, it's almost 40% of the entire portfolio in terms of the number of brands that LVMH has that belong to MH, or the wines and spirits side of it. But as you would have seen in the published annual reports, as it's a listed company, MH does about 6.6 billion euros of revenue. That was the 2023 of the 86 billion total revenue of LVMH. So we're quite the young child that continues to push the boundaries.
That sounds very interesting. Could you tell us about Moët Hennessy's vision for India? Where do we stand in terms of all the other countries that they're operating in?
Shabri, the global vision of MH is pretty much aligned to our India vision as well. And our vision is to lead the future of luxury wines and spirits. And we are committed to doing that from nature to communities. Right? So sustainability also obviously plays a very important role, as much as our numbers do. The India story is just about getting started when it comes to Moët Hennessy. We are less than 2 decades old in India. However, seeing the India opportunity and the evolving demographics, India stands to be one of the most promising and highest growth drivers for Moët Hennessy globally. Right. And I think that stands true across several categories. But when it comes to luxury, India is a no-brainer. Right? It's got the second largest middle class in the world. But when it comes to luxury, there are about 15 million relevant consumers, and that is expected to go to almost 30 million by 2030. Right? When you look at the number of billionaires, we have about 167 billionaires in the world that come from India today, which is also growing about 10 to 11% year on year. 700,000 millionaires, again, growing by around 75% in the next 5 years. It's a very, very young population. The demographics in India is all about aspiration and consuming and premiumizing. In fact, as recently as end of last year, we also started a private sales channel for Moët Hennessy in India, which is basically for the UHNIs, where they get to purchase the absolute rarities. Right. So the rare cask and the limited editions that are launched globally are made available to global Indians, the UHNIs. So India continues to be a very, very promising growth driver for Moët Hennessy globally.
Where does India stand in terms of geographical rankings when it comes to the other countries? In terms of revenue for LVMH or even just for Moët Hennessy?
To be honest, LVMH in India is very, very nascent.
Yeah.
Right. So our footprint in India is still pretty limited. Having
Mhm.
said that, there are a few categories where we are doing exceptionally well and we are in the global top 3 and top 5. Right.
Okay.
So India is a whiskey drinking country. 80% of Indian alcohol consumption is in the form of whiskey. So, of course, we do have our Ardbeg and Glenmorangie in the portfolio that we sell in India from Moët Hennessy, and we are in the top 5 in the world when it comes to Glenmorangie. Right. So different categories behave differently, but Glenmorangie has definitely put India on the map in terms of consumption. Besides that, we also have Chandon. Right. So India is one of the very few countries around the world that actually produce Chandon. So there's only Australia, Argentina, Brazil, US, China, and India that make Chandon for their respective countries and the world. And India is one of those very rare places that gets to make LVMH's sparkling wine here. So yeah, so in terms of ranking, I would say the different categories, especially Glenmorangie and Chandon, we are on the top of the list when it comes to putting India on the map.
So, since you touched upon your Indian production capacities, could you tell us a little bit about the manufacturing plant in Nashik?
Absolutely, Shabari. That's I would say that's our favorite baby because we make it in India. Story of Shauna started 10 years back in India. This is actually the 10th year. We are going to be celebrating the 10th year anniversary this year. It is Moët Hennessy's and LVMH's pretty much only capex investment in India till date. Right, so that makes us extremely proud about what we make in India, and also extremely proud as an Indian to make a world-class product, luxury product in India. So Shorna, which is the sparkling wine house of LVMH, is produced in 6 different countries around the world, India being one of them, and the youngest of the lot. The story of Shorna started almost about 50, 60 years back in the Americas, and then in 2014 here in India. So we make sparkling wine, both the Shorna Brut as well as the Shorna Rosé in India. And as recently as last year, we launched for the first time from the House of Sparkling Wine a still red wine called Shorna Orva. So we launched this in Delhi and Bombay, 100% Shiraz red wine that we brought in, keeping in mind the Indian consumer. While sparkling wine as a category is getting developed, we believe that the Indian consumers are taking pretty well to still red wines as well. And there's a large consumption that's happening. And we wanted to bring in our expertise of handling and producing world-class Shiraz through the lens of a still wine.
All right. The brands that you mentioned, which are doing really well in India, are they similar to the ones which are global best performers? Or are the Indian brands slightly different from what Moët Hennessy is seeing in other countries?
So, Shabari, it's different for different countries. No two countries pretty much react the same way to the brands. The front runners from the portfolio are different for different countries. So, for Moët Hennessy, obviously, the champagnes and the cognac are the front runners in most countries. But for
Yeah.
India, we love our brown spirit and we love our whiskeys. So, Glenmorangie definitely has been the front runner for us here.
Could you tell us a little bit about your travel retail channel strategies? Does the global nature of the brands of your company cause issues in terms of India sales?
Yes, travel retail does play a very, very important role globally and more so in India, Shaburi. And that's primarily because, India is a heavily, heavily taxed market when it comes to alcohol. So 150% custom duties can make some of the luxury products prohibitively expensive by the time it comes into the domestic market. While we know that Indians have changed over the last 3 to 4 years because COVID taught us to consume the most luxury products, even from our domestic retail, and we premiumized. We started drinking less, but we started drinking better. Travel retail at airports or global travel retail continues to be a huge window of opportunity and point of sale for us. Because obviously a large part of Indian travel retail, as you would know, happens at arrivals. Everybody wants to pick up their 2 liters when they come back home, whichever part of the country they're coming back into. So yes, we actually see travel retail as a window for us to really kind of make our brands be present, because it's not just beauties, but if you see alcobev as a segment, India is also a dark market, right?
Yeah.
So unlike many other markets around the world where you can have an advertisement up on the billboard or in the print media, in India, we do have very, very limited opportunities to talk about our brands. And retail becomes a very, very exciting space for us to communicate to our audience within the realms of the guidelines of what the retail allows us to.
Could you also tell us about your retail channel strategy apart from travel retail? Where can we find Moët Hennessy products in India?
Yeah. So, Shabari, I think that's an area that we've been evolving in at a very fast pace, right? As for Moët Hennessy, crafting experience has been at the core of what we do. And
Mhm.
for us, over the last many, many years and decades, that crafting of experience has happened in the on premise or in the restaurants or in events, not much in retail. It's largely been a very interactive way of bringing our brands forward to our consumers.
Okay.
In India, it's only been in the last 4 to 5 years, and I'm not talking about travel retail, but in general, in domestic market, we've seen a lot of luxury consumption move to home, right?
Okay.
People started kind of enjoying the best of the spirits and the best of the wines at home. And this has
Yeah.
happened as an impact of COVID. You don't wait for the time you travel. You call up a tonic, or you call up a living liquids, or you call up the store next to where you live to get your bottle delivered to your place if that's allowed, or you send your person to pick up the bottle, or you go get it yourself, right? So our retail strategy has evolved over a period of time. Whether you talk about building in the most attractive visibilities which communicate the ethos of the brand and exactly the ethos of our products, to bringing in limited edition drops. So for the longest period of times, our limited edition drops would be limited to airports. But now we
Yeah.
have started to bring in, our limited edition drops to domestic market as well.
Okay.
We've started to bring in a lot of prestige range products also in the domestic market. Yes, it continues to be a challenge when it comes to the duties, but you have to play by the rule book.
Could you also please define prestige, because the pricing metrics for India is very different from the global. So our prestige is defined between 500 to 2000 rupees for a 750 ml bottle. Could you tell us what do you mean by prestige, please?
Yeah, so prestige, I would say anything that will be priced, let's say 18 or 20,000 above. So I would talk about a Glenmorangie Signet or a Hennessy XO or any of the limited edition whiskeys that come in, right?
Okay.
So you are right in saying, Shabri, that, prestige range in IWSR terms start at a much lower range. Very
Yeah.
interestingly, we have actually seen the segment of the prestige share of India's consumption actually go up in the last few years. And that is, again, the story of the premiumization that we have been seeing and talking about for the past many years. So earlier we would think that, a person buying a 20,000 rupee, a Signet or a Dom or 30,000 rupees XO will only buy it when it is duty free. Right. But what we've seen is now a lot of this consumption has now moved to domestic retail as well, which is great for us. So which also kind of makes us bring in some of the best products to domestic retail today, because we know that consumers are ready to buy it from the retail store next door. Besides that, we are also bringing in India exclusive SKUs, India exclusive products. So that's also in our part of the plan. Besides, obviously, when it comes to retail strategy, it is also very occasion led.
Could you also tell us about your brand activation campaigns, especially via the on-trade channel?
Absolutely, Shabri. And on trade is at our core because that's what we know the best, right? And crafting experience is our DNA. And there's absolutely no better place to do that for our consumers. So we, of course, work with most of the five-star hotels and some of the big chains. Like Taj, for instance, is a very, very strong partner of ours. We've been working with the Taj Group of Hotels, or IHCL, for multiple years, and we are present in most of their properties, palace properties as well. And we co-curate events with Taj in most parts of the country. Similarly, for Oberoi, we were a partner with the recent concourse that happened in Udaipur. But not just that, we also partner with a lot of our standalone on-trade restaurants, and they obviously are a very, very key lever and player in terms of how we bring forward our brand and the experiences that we curate with them for our consumers. A lot of our on-trade activities are around activation. So just to give you a few examples, Shona, for instance, brunch and bubbles is a big thing. We do have the Shona brunches happening in many parts of the country every weekend. Similarly, Belvedere is synonymous to nights. So a lot of high energy events, high energy nights happen with Belvedere. Similarly, Hennessy, Glenmorangie, while they are known for, either drinking it neat or on the rocks or at times post dinner, but you'll see a lot of our on-trade activations are around cocktails. So Hennessy with ginger ale, or the Glenmorangie or the whiskey cocktails that are out there today, we are pretty much partnering with most of our on-trade outlets to bring our brands forward in the very non-conventional ways. So we've not had a master distiller come to India post-COVID, but that's been on the cards as well. But yes, all these activations do put at the very forefront everything Indian, because I think the way our brands are being built is not just in a global way, but also it has a huge local factor built into it.
Lovely. Since you mentioned local, we have to talk about the cognac range that you guys have. I personally have tried it once. I think it's a very interesting liquid, but I know very little about cognac. And I think I'm in the majority when it comes to Indian masses. Is it still considered a seasonal drink? Have you seen any difference in terms of consumption of the liquid between North and the South? Has there been any trends for that?
Yeah, Shabri, I think you've just hit the nail on its head. In India, while we see very decent amount of cognac consumption, a large part of that consumption still happens in south of India, right? And you don't see that in most other alcohol that are being consumed across India. So it's not a regional drink, and neither is it a drink for winters. And I still wonder how that story got formulated, because nowhere around that world that story goes. Right? So it is, again, a wall weather drink. It is all-season drink. It is a drink that you can enjoy post-dinner, pre-dinner. It's about exposing and getting our people to try cognac. Like, one of the global ways of consuming cognac these days is in the form of cocktails. So Hennessy is huge when it comes to cocktails, right? And as I was mentioning at the very beginning, I love like XO on the rocks, but I would love a Hennessy VS with a ginger ale, or a VSOP with a ginger ale as well.
I would have never assumed ginger ale pairs with this.
It's amazing. A VS with a ginger ale is it's a liquid made for each other. So I think for cognac, we still do have some room to kind of build that with a little more universal following rather than just a regional following that we have today.
Understood. And that brings me to my very last question. We have 5 months left in this calendar year. What can we expect from the company in India?
Just like pretty much every single year, we will have a few new products coming our way, both in travel retail as well as the domestic market. So a few new category launches as well. So we will innovate, and we'll innovate not just in the form of products, but we'll continue to innovate also in the way we curate our experience. So you will expect to see a lot more of the luxury range and the ultra luxury and the prestige range of products coming to India for Moët Hennessy.
Clearly, the French alcobev maker is planning to ride the premiumization wave in India to the best of their advantage in the foreseeable future. The Moët Hennessy production facility in Nashik has a production capacity of 50,000 cases in a year. The production facility also allows enotourism or wine tourism for those who want to enjoy a luxury wine experience. For Moët Hennessy in the Indian market, awareness remains a challenge, as does accessibility, and those will be Ipsita's key focus areas going forward. You have been listening to the Morning Brief brought to you by the Economic Times. A big thank you to our guest for the conversation. We hope you enjoyed it. A shout out to the team that helped put the episode together. Our producers Neil Ghai and Vinay Joshi, sound team Amrit Reggie, and our executive producers Anirban Chaudhary and Arijit Burman. Do like and share the episode and follow us on your favorite podcast platform to make sure you don't miss an episode. Thank you for listening in.